All right, fine. Yes, JK Rowling.
Began yesterday. We know this very well. In Hollywood, they avoided films even when they made films where the only winner, the country that defeated fascism, was the United States, and didn't say anything about the Red Army. But if you look at the number of military units
Real voice
fighting in the East, that was the Russian units. So they just canceled the contribution of the Red Army into the defeat of the Nazis. And in Japan, they don't even mention who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or they just say it was done by some abstract allies. And the fact that it was the United States who did such an awful...
I choose to believe that this isn't the translator just trying to keep up or whatever. I choose to believe that this is Putin just being incredibly uncharismatic. I'm going to attribute all of this to him. My guess, actually, is that if you've listened to Putin speak, he has a very slurring, kind of slow, deliberate speech. And I'm guessing that because of the conjugation differences between Russian and English, it's difficult for the translator to construct these sentences at his pace in English in response to his speech in Russian. That's my guess.
Slaughter at the end of the war. This fact is not even mentioned. So they just cancelled cynically this truth. They cancelled JK Rowling recently, the children's author. Her books are published all over the world, even just because she didn't satisfy the demands of gender rights. They're not trying to cancel our country. I'm talking about the progressive discrimination of everything to do with Russia, this trend that's unfolding in a number of Western states, with the full neglect or sometimes encouragement of Western cultures. They're now engaging in the cancel culture. They're even removing Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Rachmaninoff from posters. Russian writers and their books are canceled.
So now that JK Rowling is officially, with this speech, in league with the Russian government, can we sanction her? Can we add her to the sanctions, the oligarch sanction list? It's time to seize some yachts. I don't know if she owns a yacht. She's very wealthy. She might own a yacht. I don't really know.
Now, the latest program to cancel world literature was conducted by the Nazis in Germany 90 years ago. We remember that footage when they were burning books. It's impossible to imagine such a thing in our country, and we're insured against this thanks to our culture, and it's inseparable for us from our motherland, from Russia, where there is no place for ethnic intolerance, where for centuries representatives from dozens of ethnic groups have been living together, and cultural diversity is the pride of our society, the strength and priority of our states.
Oh yeah, what books were the Nazis burning? What groups were they burning books about? It's just funny because, like, right now, like, one of the big genres they burned was everything having to do with gender and trans people, and the right is launching, like, this unprecedented attack on censoring and banning everything pertaining to those particular subjects. Also, they took Mouse out of off the bookshelves, or it's the library in school, right? The little mice in the Holocaust. Anyway, I think... So, by the way, Putin is correct about one thing here, in that the drive in America and other countries to respond to what's happening by, like, censoring or taking down anything they perceive to be Russian is really stupid when they're Russian historical or cultural artifacts, you know? Like, fucking, like, yeah, don't read Dostoevsky or whatever, you know. It's the whole get rid of Karl Marx, even though he was German and worked in England, you know. I saw there was, like, a play canceled because it was derivative of that. There was, like, a movie that was going to be made that isn't. It's just dumb stuff like that. I don't have it like all written out or whatever, but it's pretty stupid. If anything, I think it essential to reaffirm at times like this, um, that our sympathies are with the Russian people, that there is a universality in the human spirit between Americans and Russians and everywhere else, and that our issue is with the Russian government. All it does to Russian people is make it look like our hatred is essentialist towards them, which reaffirms the positions they have, the ostracism they talk about, that their government reaffirms to them. I think it's really disgusting behavior. If you want to sanction the Russian government or the economy or whatever, fine, that's a part of wartime. But like, this is some freedom fries tier bullshit. Like, if a Russian family here in America, a person who maybe moved to America like 6 or 7 years ago before this war began, I want them to feel as welcome in America as they did in Russia. Every part of the world should be their home. The world is a home to humans, every part of it, or at least it should be. You're acting like this is a widespread phenomenon. Any concrete proof it being the case? No, I'm not going to give you sociological data, and I think I'm treating it with the same seriousness it deserves. The issue is this has always been the case. When antagonism erupts between countries, ethnic divisions get reinforced between those powers. That's a universal thing. It has happened all throughout history, and it's a force that we have to overcome because it is unnecessary, it is counterproductive, it is harmful, and it's dumb. It's cringe. We saw this against Chinese people when COVID broke out. We saw this against Muslims when 9/11 happened. We've seen this against Muslims a couple of times, actually. We saw this against Southeast Asians in general during the Vietnam and Korean Wars because Americans aren't too particular with their discrimination. Same reason why, yeah, Sikhs get targeted whenever people are mad at Muslims because they both, in the mind of the American, have, head towels or whatever the fuck Americans think this is, we put, Japanese people in concentration camps. Internment camps on the West Coast during World War II. Across Europe, there actually was an essential hatred of German people for a long time. I'm just talking about America too. Like, if you want to look in like the Mediterranean region, like the hatred people have, the issue is, okay, we cannot allow hatred against a government bleed down in hatred towards the people. The people, especially when we're counting on the Russian people to oppose the behavior of their government, they must understand that the world doesn't hate them. The world hates what their government is doing. The world stands with them because standing with them means giving them the tools to free themselves from that autocracy, from the conscripted 18-year-old boys who were sent off into Ukraine being told it was a training mission, from the sanctions which their government has brought down upon them with their unjustifiable behavior. We must not hate the Russian people. And I do not. Anyway, JK Rowling responds, whoa! Rowling hits back at Putin after he likened Russia to her in Rant against cancel culture. Wow! Critiques of Western cancel culture are possibly not best made by those currently slaughtering civilians for the crime of resistance or who jail and poison their critics. Hashtag I stand with Ukraine. Nice, Joanne! Thank you. Less likes than her response to me. Impressive. God, I hate liberals. The rare Joanne W. Okay, here's the real question, okay? Here's the real question. Here's what we really need, okay? We need Putin to respond to this by saying he's disappointed after Rowling had taken such a strong stand against Western delusions such as like gender ideology or whatever, okay? We need to... JK Rowling needs to be put on the goddamn... in the fire, all right? I want to see how she handles that, okay? The pressure cooker. I would love that. I would love that so much. It's the Stone Toss Tug of War meme. Well, not really, because it's supposed to be surprising in that meme, and the idea that JK Rowling would side with far-right autocrats is not surprising, considering that she did that with Trump implicitly by, standing with all of his pundits and fans in the anti-trans stuff. We'll see. Anyway, it is just God, I hope that happens. Many Russians still like Putin. That is true. They often like their strongmen. And by the way, the narrative the Russians have been told by Putin and by the Kremlin is that the rest of the world hates them. That America and NATO and the Western hegemon hates the Russian people. The theocrats of Iran do the exact same thing. That's the narrative, you know? That's how autocrats get away with suppressing their population. Maybe things are bad here and under us, but they would be so much worse were it not for us. Trump did the same stuff too, you know? Trump's that little meme that he liked posting, they're not coming after me, I'm just in the way, they're really after you. Yeah, they hate you, I'm just in the way. Exactly. A perfect way of reinforcing I saw that meme with Destiny's face on it just a couple hours ago. A perfect way of reinforcing this world narrative that's been built. Wouldn't the Russian people see the sanctions as an attack on them? Then form a better narrative. Frankly, I think NATO powers should be doing more effort right now to win the propaganda war, not just for Ukraine, but for the Russian people. I think Schwarzenegger so far did the best job of this by speaking so positively of the Russian protesters against the war. That was the thing. So far, I think that has been the most decisive, like, PR stunt to indicate to the Russian people that we should have a shared hatred of their government. But I think more effort can be put into that. More work can be done there. I think, in fact, I would go so far as to say that would actually be more important than winning the PR war for Ukraine against Russia at this point, because the world has already spoken on this. The UN vote has already spoken. The world stands with Ukraine, and so, of course, do the arms companies, which are backing them and not Russia. So in terms of like moving forward, what we need now is for the Russian will to fight to not exist. And the best way to do that is to show Russians there is a better way. And by the way, the Russians have good reason to fucking hate us. You know that? The shock therapy that Yeltsin put the country through, what we did to them after the fall of the Soviet Union, the policies that we encouraged, the negotiations we made, the trade deals that we put through, the economic hegemon we broke them into, we fucked them. I don't know how much of this was deliberate because we hated them after the Cold War. I don't know how much of this was because I'm not fully researched on it. I don't know how much of this was incompetence because neoliberals are fucking stupid. I genuinely don't know. All I know is that Russia was met with like unimaginable economic deprivation. Not all because of us at all. Russia fucked itself plenty, but we could have done more. We could have done a hell of a lot more. And we didn't. And we let them languish, and we did essentially nothing. We just let it happen. And is it really surprising that after that, after people like, you know, Yeltsin would oversee this shock therapy, this process of the country being torn apart by neoliberalism, of people being made worse off than they were under the Soviet fucking Union? Is it really surprising after that they would turn to a strongman like Putin who tells them things they want to hear? Yes. The reason the West did this is because they hate you. The West wants to rule the world, and we are in the way. We are the bulwark against their imperialism. They tried to destroy us with shock therapy, but they will succeed no longer. This is the narrative they built. We must have a counter-narrative. In the shock doctrine, Klein indicates it was both incompetence and purposeful. I would very much like to read this. There was definitely some malice involved. Yeltsin was only able to fuck over Russia because American advisors propped him up in the 90s. I must read this. I must read into this, yes. Listen, I think the people of Russia have very, very good reason to hate and to distrust us. Unfortunately, the best thing we can do at this point is indicate that as bad as we have been to them, Putin is being worse. And that is a very shaky moral ground to operate from. So I think it would be better if we made an effort to indicate to them that we have a shared interest in the rebuilding of Russia for the Russian people. I mean, Christ, how hard would it be to rebuild Russia? Have you seen what their GDP is? We could... I legitimately think that if we move some money around, we have enough discretionary spending leeway to just double their GDP. What? Seriously, what is their GDP? Hold on. 1.5 trillion USD, as opposed to us, 21 trillion USD, less than 1/10 of our GDP. Did I say spending? Spending. I am quite tired. There you go. USA versus Russia. GDP. Why doesn't it just give me charts here? Yes, 21 versus 1.5. Formerly 1.5. I'm sure it'll go down. Hold on. Discretionary spending, Russia, government. The federal budget of Russia. The federal budget is... The deficit is 21. Wait, where's the budget? Budget revenues. Okay. Back in 2016, the spending, about $233 billion. I think we could help them out. I don't know if we could double that, though. That seems like... doubling that might be tough. Man, I don't even know. We spend $7 trillion. We spent $6.82 trillion. Back in 2021, Russia spends 1/30th of our federal budget. No, what? Yeah, 1/30th of our federal budget. We could help them. We could build them. We could build back better. We could build back better. Your federal budget is a mess, though. Okay, true. However, compared to Russia, I'm pretty sure that our books look like they were organized by a fucking savant, okay? Listen, okay? I have no doubt that if you compared our budgetary, like, organization compared to them, ours would look like it was assembled by Christ Almighty, and theirs would look like it was assembled by some sort of, I don't know, spiteful hobgoblin army. I don't know. How about y'all build your own country's infrastructure first? What do you have against building Russia's? Oh, what? Do you think... What? Americans have such incredibly high standards of living compared to Russians. Why would we not... Why not both? We can't spare a little? Is that not economic imperialism? It depends on how you do it. If you do it so that we dictate the way it's spent, we dictate the where it goes, we dictate policies, we hold it, contingencies, you can only get it if you get this, so on and so forth. Yes, economic imperialism. But I'm not advocating for any World Bank IMF shit, okay? I'm saying flat out, they should just get money. They should just be rebuilt. I am not aware of how to do this best. I know Russia is a corrupt country, and I understand this is a complicated subject, but it is something to strive towards, and it is something that I want done, and I think great expenses should be undertaken if it means being able to do this. Want to go straight in the pockets of the oligarchs? Then let's find a way to do it in a way that doesn't happen. Take as much time as you need to research it. Spend as much money as you want. They're human beings over there. And I'm perfectly... pardon me for being an American exceptionalist, but somehow I think the most powerful country on earth is somehow capable of aiding in the development of another country, even if it's corrupt. Russia's entire GDP would only make it the 4th biggest state in America. Yeah, let me guess. New York, Texas, and California take first billing, and then it would be Russia. And then what? Pennsylvania? I don't know. Russians have been indifferent to the suffering of the Ukrainians dying. Don't say stuff like that. First of all, Russians live in a disinfo bubble. Their propaganda is produced by the state. Second of all, there have been massive protests. Third of all, do you know that? Have you done polling? Have you seen polling done of Russian people that isn't being done by the Kremlin, an organization that would want to exaggerate support? The people in Russia are terrified of their government. Indifferent sometimes, terrified otherwise, ignorant often. There are a number of emotions the Russian people, as I understand it, experience when thinking of their government. Trust, as I know, is not one of them. I grew up in Russia. We have internet, lol. Okay. We have internet here in America. How many Americans practice faith healing? You think that's enough? We have internet, lol. What about, what do your algorithms prioritize? Which sites that back mostly Russian-speaking people, where do they lead? What information is promoted there? How many people in your country actually use internet for news acquisition? Of them, how many of them get their info from a broad or diverse range of sources? I'm sorry, we live in America. How many Americans get news from non-American... Like, you guys realize that for a Russian, getting news from, like, U.S. publications on Russian affairs would be like an average American opening up, like, Al Jazeera and getting info from there. You realize that, like, not many Americans get their news from Al Jazeera, right? Like, just keep in mind, okay? It's Ukrainians are just saying we need to be less apathetic to Slavic suffering. Well, sure. Yeah, that's fine. So Russians shouldn't be tackling their Nazi problems? What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Who said this? Is there another streamer here that I am not aware of? Is a ghost speaking into the microphone when I am not? Can I not hear them? Russia has a huge national supremacy problem. Okay, we should fix that. I don't know what any of this has to do with me wanting to rebuild a country devastated by sanctions the United States has led. Should we not? Do the people of Russia not deserve to lead dignified lives? Everyday Russians have talked down to Ukrainians and everyday sentiments from the everyday Russians to problem. Tired Teresa, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. At Vaush, they've been colonizing other countries for centuries. It's not Putin's mentality. What the... All right, Vicky Radosh, you get to be the main character of the next 5 minutes. How much of a fucking chauvinist do you have to be to essentialize Russian imperial sentiment to the entire fucking ethnic group and pretend speaking to an American in a chat full of Americans that colonizing must essentially impugn the morality of the descendants of those colonizers? Where are you from? Where are your ancestors from? The Polish Empire? What? The English Empire? What, are you from Spain or Portugal? Not France, I hope. What the fuck are you talking about? We colonized the planet. Russia was a fucking infant compared to England, and now Russia today is an infant compared to us. We're so powerful we don't even need a military to conquer anything. Our trade deals single-handedly bankrupt or elevate countries, and all you have to do is kiss ass to neoliberalism to get in the in crowd. What do you, like, what? How could you possibly, what mentality, what Russian essential mentality? Why? They're Ukrainian? I don't care if they're Ukrainian. Do you think you get to be, what, ethnically prejudiced just because your country is being invaded? I will personally walk up to every single racist Ukrainian after this conflict is over, and I will beat the shit out of them in Minecraft for being racist if they are racist. Not if they're not racist, and also only in Minecraft. And only a little bit, and also not if they're a child, because there are racist children. Just you can't. All you do is perpetuate the cycle. You can't. It's very frustrating. Listen, I understand some frustration here, but like, what do you carry this mentality forward forever? Okay, so it's the Russian people. So what do you want to do? What, do you want to powderize the entire country? Like, what are you suggesting? You realize the Ukrainians also themselves had an empire in times past, right? Like, what, do we just exchange hands now in a post-nuclear world? Like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. There is no such thing, no real such thing as a national mentality. There's no such thing as a nation state, not in an essential sense. And you know what? There's also no such thing as the people. There are only persons grouped together at times for sociological categorization. But there isn't the idea of this mythological, the people, the Russian people. It's a myth. It's a myth created by people in power to direct groups of people against other groups of people. Always has the categorization been the tool of those who separate. As a gender abolitionist, we understand that while the sexes, male and female, may be things that we as humans, as mammals, are born with and live with, that doesn't change the fact that the roles assigned to both, men and women, have been categorical distinctions imposed to enforce the ways in which people are allowed to live their lives in wildly unnecessary ways. You know, maybe 10 trillion years ago, tribal societies felt it's, socially useful to have like women who just gave birth breastfeed or whatever, and that should have been like a socially expected thing. But when you get to the 17th century and men's and women's clothing are both like $16,000 each of poofed fabric going in opposite directions, and there are very specific social etiquette protocols on how exactly to talk and curtsy at the other one, like, okay, clearly we have gone beyond any sort of biologically essentialist designation here. Race as well. Race as we understand it today, not a concept that we were born with. There have always been tribal groups, there have always been tribalist differences, but the idea that these differences were distinguished primarily by skin color was a product of scientific racism that emerged in the late 16th century, which was generally used as a post hoc way of explaining the justification for white people enslaving black people. Like, Europeans didn't enslave black people at first because they thought black people were worse and inferior and deserved slavery. They enslaved black people because of the trade routes they took to get to the New World. The fact that passing by the coast of Africa was relatively convenient and on the way, the fact that there were slavers in Africa who were willing to sell those slaves, the fact that they were relatively less capable of defending themselves and not organized into the proto-nation states that European powers were, all of the pre-existing systems were just conveniences. The post system, the racial hierarchy, was invented to explain and to justify. And then, God willing, we get the fucking nation state. And it's just been a barrel of laughs since then, hasn't it? Now we get a goddamn post-nuclear fragmented world where not a single square inch of territory outside the seventh continent is not a part of some other fucking country. You can't piss on a tree anywhere without violating some private or public standard ordinance. And the nation state drives itself to the line of every other nation state, to the fucking molecule. There's no space left. There's nowhere on Earth, again, except for parts of Antarctica, which are uncolonizable unless you are incredibly fucking wealthy. And the fucking moon, have fun going over there. Elon Musk wants to conquer Mars, have fun with that. We have nothing left to the truly public commons. And what do we get for it? The idea that there's any difference between Americans and Canadians, or any difference between Americans and Mexicans, or any difference between the French, the English, the Irish, the Polish, the Hungarians, the Russians, the Mongolians, the Chinese, the South Koreans, and the Australians. There aren't. There are infinitely complex gradients of experience, of skin color, of geographic diversity, of language, of cultural affinity that bleed and blend together in a post-globalist world where anyone can move anywhere as long as they have the money to do so and the borders haven't been closed for some stupid fucking reason. By the way, another concept which is a product of the nation state. Try closing a border during a fucking, kingdom, like in a kingdom, in a monarchy. You can't do it. They didn't have social security numbers back then, but now it's possible because we track every single fucking citizen to just deny to human beings the ability to live within parts of the only planet we have. And there's nothing. All of this we made up for what? For convenience's sake? No, we made it up because powerful people find it much, much, much easier to lead armies against other powerful people when there are categorical distinctions they can place themselves within alongside the people they're controlling in an army, or in a bureaucracy, or in an administration, or in a serfdom, or a group of farmers, or a citizenry, or whatever else, or in an economy. What is the American economy? Can you tell me? How many companies exactly are a part of the American economy? Is a company a part of an American economy if it operates in America but its headquarters is in Hong Kong? What about if a country has a business within it that's owned by the United States, but all of the tax revenue goes to the U.S. government because the headquarters is somewhere in fucking Langley? What does it even mean for a company to be an American company or a Chinese company or whatever? You know what it means? It means tax law. That's what it means. That's what it means to them, okay? It doesn't mean they're any more your people. It doesn't mean they're any more with you. It doesn't mean they're any closer to you geographically these days. It means which taxes they have to deal with. That's it. It is a mathematical calculation taking the guise of a geographic proximity, which they employ to delude people who buy shit in America that said it's made by an American company, that they're buying American, as though all the component parts that the American factory used to put the shit together weren't made in China and mined in Africa. It is a complete misdirection, but people buy into these categories. Now, I understand as a sociologist that categorizations can be very useful because even though these categories are arbitrary, unnecessary, and harmful, they still indicate things about human behavior, and we can learn about patterns by tracking them. But my God, do not get prescriptive on me. Do not with this, my people this, our people that, this people that. If I conked all of you over the head and fucking dumped you in the middle of the ocean until you swam desperate, head bleeding over to an island, all you have there are two people, okay? You can figure your coconut shit out however you like, but the nanosecond you fucks bring gender or race or, God forbid, nationality into the conversation you have after the fucking your head clears, you're doomed. It reminds me a little bit of legitimate, I think, UN-directed policy where they've talked about the potential nationality of any future moon colonists. I know it sounds far-fetched, but really think about it. The first colonization vessels that make it to the moon are invariably going to be controlled either by a corporation or by a government. So does the moon colony then become a colony of that government? Do they ever get to declare independence? My personal feeling, my personal thought is that we live fleetingly short lives, and it's very easy to kill a person too. We live very fragile lives. And the more of our time is wasted and the more of our lives worsened by approaching other people as transiently separate categories, as opposed to just people wearing a different set of clothing, the infinitely worse the human experience is. Because all these categories that I've talked about are as arbitrary and ever-changing as clothing. They're just clothes. And that doesn't mean they're meaningless, they're meaningful, but that does mean that they should be treated as what they are. Drapery over the important bit, which is the human being. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Okay, there I ranted, I did my bit. That was more than 5 minutes.